Okay, let's talk a little bit today about some signature training methods from Filipino martial arts. And so this will be in the Kuntao section. And you can see the similarities of the Chinese Kung Fu movements. In fact, they're the exact same thing. But the unique thing about the Filipino method is what we call the flow drills, right? And typically we would learn this as a hubud drill, although I really would call it sombrada because it's just counter for counter. But what I want to talk about today is Cadena, the chain, right? And also the idea that when I'm doing apparently what looks like a defensive movement, and I'm doing 3 movements, okay, that they're all pretty much on the same spot. It's just, it's percussive. And I'm playing with rhythm and positioning and structure, but I'm putting them together in a chain as quickly as possible. Now, the reality is that the opponent does not leave their arm out there, okay? It's very rare that someone just attacks with one strike anyway, and it's very rare that they just leave their arm out there. In fact, it doesn't happen at all. They would either drop it, retract it, give you resistance, or initiate grappling, okay, things of that nature. And they'll be pressuring you forward, moving away from you, and so on and so forth. So it's dynamic in reality. So this thing about just getting stuck in these movements is not the idea. So the first idea of the Cadena is that when I do the 3 movements, is that I begin to segment the limbs, and you heard me talk about this in the other Facebook groups, Group A and Group B, so that I go from the wrist or the hand to the tricep to the shoulder. Okay, that's one way to do it, is that you're climbing up. All right. Okay. But the idea is that it's not just patty cake. It's not, even though I'm climbing up, there's other things going on. I'm stepping away from, I'm crashing towards, and I'm spinning off to the side, okay? So unless you're doing those things, basically you're just doing patty cake here. Okay? All right. The other thing is that each beat of the 3 beats represents a major or minor hit. Okay. And so on and so forth. All right. So that's the other thing about Cadena. Okay. So the idea of the patty cake is doing it quickly. All right, is getting that percussiveness and explosiveness in your hands, all right? And that you just don't do it robotically, which might remind you of some of the other things you've seen, right? So one tends to be a little bit more flow and patty cake, and then the other one is a little bit more defined and or / robotic. So you probably want to play around with both, where you have a flow and then you crash, okay? Now, my favorite example of Cadena really is the multiple use of one limb, okay, in continual attack. And again, it's one of those things to where if I demonstrate it to you as the use of the fingers, the use of the palm, the use of the forearm, the use of the elbow, the use of the shoulder, the use of the head, okay? That's probably a little bit too long and drawn out, okay? So what you're looking for really is a little bit more like 1-2s, okay? So where I go 1-2 like this, okay? Or I go 1-2 like this. Take a look at it this way. 1-2, okay? 1-2, 1-2, okay? 1-2, 1-2. So minor, major, right? Minor, major, major, minor, all right? Those are shorter combinations of Cadena. And so you're looking for that during engagement of grappling, okay, at longer range, all right, and entering to get closer in. So, again, I'm not sure how I really feel about these flow drills. The way we would do it is that the guy feeds me a punch and I go 1, 2, 3, and I feed him a punch and he does 1, 2, 3. You could also go to the inside line and do the same thing. You feed him the punch and he does the 1, 2, 3. It can also be done on the low line, 1, 2, 3. And I feed him the low punch and he does the 1, 2, 3. Okay? He feeds me, I can go to the inside and I feed him and he does the same thing here. Okay? And again, you first learn it in one spot and then you learn to crash. Okay? And then you learn to insert, okay, on the different ones as you climb up the limb. So it's the same thing. The thing is, why do the flow drill? Actually, you know, when I was learning this, I really didn't ask why. I just did it. Yeah, it was my instructor. It was unique and it's fun. And but I've asked since then to people that I respect, and I haven't really received a good answer yet. The only thing that I can come up with is kind of coordination, relaxation, and tension kind of drilling, to where, again, I'm learning how to move fast and explosively, okay? But it's not enough. You still need depth penetration, forward penetration. Someone tries to get away from you and you go in. Someone crashes you and you go around them. All right? Okay, so that's a little bit about, from the Kuntao section, about 3-beat defensive movements. They're not really meant to be 3 beats of defensive movements. All of them are attacks. Okay? Even with disengagement. All right? Di cadena, chain of hand, cadena de mano.